Tonight, I want to begin with a confession. There have been way too many moments in my life when I know I should have spoken and I remained silent. There were times when history was moving, when conscience was calling, when injustice was plain to see, and I did not step forward. I was afraid. I was uncertain. I told myself that humility required silence, or that caution was wisdom. After many years now, I have come to understand that sometimes silence is not humility. Sometimes it is surrender. I remember being a teenager in Kansas City in April of 1968, just days after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I was sitting in class as reports came over the loudspeakers of protests and unrest occurring just a couple of miles down the road from my school. I remember the fear, but I also remember the question that lodged itself deep inside me. Why am I not protesting with other students? Why am I not speaking up? A few years later, in October 1973, as a college student, I watched the Yom Kippur War unfold. Israel had been attacked on the holiest day of our year, and in those first terrible days, if you remember, no one knew what would happen. I passed a table on campus where students were being asked to volunteer and go help in Israel. I kept walking. Once again, the question followed me. Why did I not stop? Why did I not offer myself as a volunteer for Israel? 3 decades later, in March 2003, I found myself at the Pentagon, sitting in the private briefing room of then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. With me were 17 other leaders, priests, ministers, rabbis, imams, representing the religious spectrum of America. We were there to hear Rumsfeld's plans for reconstructing Iraq following our invasion that began earlier in the month. And in Rumsfeld's words, to reconstruct Iraq, quote, in the image of American democracy, unquote. Most everyone in the room pushed back, arguing and protesting that Iraq was not the United States, that we had to respect local religious and cultural norms. Everyone else spoke up. I said nothing. Later, I asked myself, where was my voice? Why did I not speak up? Those moments and several others have stayed with me, partially out of lingering guilt, but also because those moments taught me eventually something about the human soul. We often imagine that when the moral moment comes, we will simply rise to meet it. But that is not always the case. And it was not for me. Fear got in my way. Self-protection got in my way. The desire to avoid conflict got in my way. And before I knew it, each moment had passed, and my silence said what I never intended it to say. How many of you might say the same? That is why our tradition speaks with such urgency about moral responsibility. The prophet Micah asks, what does God require of you? Only to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. I have long treasured that verse. In fact, many of you know that I wear its message with me every day. Be just, be kind, and be humble. But I've had to ask myself whether I have sometimes hidden behind the last of those words. Whether I have emphasized humility so much that I excused myself from justice, whether I have substituted meekness for modesty. The prophets do not give us that option. Amos cries out, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness as a mighty stream." Isaiah warns against unjust laws and leaders who betray the vulnerable, saying, quote, "Woe to those who make unjust laws and those who issue oppressive decrees." Our tradition does not ask us merely to feel concern. It asks us to build a society worthy of the image of God. An image of God in every human being. The Talmud goes further, teaching that if a person can protest the wrongdoing of their household or of their city or of their country and does not do so, that person has full responsibility. That is a hard lesson, a hard teaching, but it is a necessary one. Let me repeat it. If a person can protest the wrongdoing of their household or their city or their land and does not do so, that person bears responsibility. To be a Jew is not just to pray. It is not only to study. It is not only to cherish memory and tradition. To be a Jew is also to accept the burden of conscience. It is to understand that religion without moral courage becomes performance, and piety without responsibility becomes merely a disguise. If our faith does not shape the way that we live in this world, then our prayers are hollow and incomplete. Now, our Reformed tradition has long understood this. Reformed Judaism teaches that ritual and ethics belong together, that prayer must lead to action, and that faithfulness to Torah means responding to the needs of the times in which we live. We inherit not only the melodies of our people, but also the fierce moral insistence of our prophets. We're not called to withdraw from the world, rather just the opposite. We are called to help heal it. I think of those who understood this before us. Rabbi Sidney Axelrod, of blessed memory, did not remain on the sidelines when civil rights demanded religious courage. He went to Selma. He marched. He accepted that leadership from the Bema sometimes requires a risk, and that there are moments when neutrality is itself a choice. After Selma, he said with striking clarity, and I quote, "I did what I should do. I did what I wanted to do. I did what I must do." And then there was Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, marching beside Dr. King, also in Selma, later saying that he felt as though his legs were praying. Heschel understood that prayer can take many forms. Sometimes it is found in words chanted in the Siddur, and sometimes it's found in the act of showing up, of speaking up, of standing up with the vulnerable, refusing to let dignity be trampled in silence. I confess, I spent far too many years of my rabbinate, far too many days trying to be careful. Perhaps there is something honorable in that. A rabbi should not casually turn the pulpit into a partisan weapon. A congregation is made up of many views, many loyalties, and many convictions. A rabbi and a cantor serves them all. I believe that deeply, and I still do. But caution can become too comfortable. Fear can dress itself up as balance, and the desire not to offend can slowly erode the willingness to name what is wrong. Looking back, I know that some of my silence came from humility, I hope, but some of it also, I know, came from fear. Fear of anger from others, fear of division, fear of consequences, fear of paying a personal price for speaking too plainly. So tonight, I say as honestly as I can, fear is real. but it cannot be our master. Not as Jews, not as religious people, not as human beings created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. The times in which we live demand more than private decency. These times demand public moral seriousness. The times we live in are as dire as 1968 or 1973 or 2003. We live in a time when anti-Semitism is again visible and shameless. We live in a time when racism still distorts. We live in an America where immigrants and poor are too often treated as burdens rather than human beings. When LGBTQ plus people are targeted for exclusion and contempt, and when public life is increasingly shaped by fear, outrage, and downright cruelty. We live in a time when truth feels fragile, when our legislative and judicial institutions strain under partisan pressure, and when too many leaders find it easier to divide than to heal. We've abandoned sanity with regards to health care and climate change. Our country has taken great leaps backwards in its role as a shining example of the democratic enterprise. None of this can be met with indifference any longer. While a Shabbat sermon is not a policy paper, the pulpit must still be a place where Torah meets life. And when Torah meets life, it insists on certain truths: that every person is worthy of dignity, that power must be held accountable, that justice matters, that compassion matters, and that silence in the presence of cruelty is spiritually dangerous. And unlike my behaviors in the past, we must all act, and we must act today. This does not mean that every Jew must think alike. It does not mean that every political question has only one Jewish answer. But it does mean that there are times when the moral stakes are so clear that we cannot pretend that they are merely matters of taste or strategy or political affiliation. There are times when this rabbi must speak out, not because he enjoys controversy, but because conscience leaves me no honorable alternative. And so, unlike my behaviors in the past, this is what I am going to do. In 25 days, when I leave Beth Am, I am accepting a new job to work on the campaign of Adam Hamilton, who is running for the U.S. Senate. Now, please allow me to say just a few things about this. First, so that our board members who are here and any of our past presidents don't have heart attacks, the IRS acknowledges that bona fide internal communications, such as a rabbi endorsing a candidate in good faith during a sermon, is protected and does not constitute illegal political campaign intervention. Therefore, my remarks tonight in no way jeopardize Beth Am's 501c3 status. I'm always looking out for you. Second, Adam Hamilton is running for the Senate in the state of Kansas, where I live. He is running, as he has described himself, as an independent Democrat. Third, a word about Adam. Some of you have heard me speak about him. He is the senior pastor of the Church of the Resurrection. He started 36 years ago with 4 people. Today, it is the largest Methodist church in America with over 24,000 members. Adam and I are close friends. We have traveled the world together. We have led trips to Israel together. We have preached sermons together and in each other's congregations. He has supported the Jewish community in ways that leave no question in my mind as to where he stands on anti-Semitism and on Israel. He cares deeply about those who are marginalized, and for those who heard Reverend Miles' sermon last week, Adam would say a loud and powerful amen to everything spoken. Parenthetically, when Glenn spoke last week, I said to myself, oh my goodness, it's the same sermon again. When Adam was deciding whether to run or not, he and I spoke at great length. His decision was both difficult and easy. Difficult because he loves his church and community. Easy because he recognizes that our country is broken, and perhaps, just perhaps, he can help be an instrument of God that will allow bridges to be built, to help us heal the divides that separate us, to bring decency and honesty and sanity and compromise back into our systems of government. Adam wanted to run as an independent, to truly be the voice in the middle. Sadly, such a move, so said the polls, would result in a failed bid. However, as a Democrat, with folks in every county of Kansas having studied his sermons, read his books, and listened to him preach, his name recognition outstripped any other candidate other than the incumbent Republican Senator, Dr. Roger Marshall. Now, you all don't know Roger Marshall, but Marshall scores an 85% ranking by the Heritage Foundation for his votes on Republican conservative matters, while the average Republican senator scores 62%. Unlike Marshall, Adam has committed to putting service above self, country before party, and people over politics. I believe him, and I believe that he, like Rabbi Axelrod, like Rabbi Heschel, and like Reverend King, can make a difference. I cannot go back and change the moments when I remained quiet. I cannot return to the classroom in 1968, or that campus in 1973, or that Pentagon briefing room in 2003, or those other moments in my life when I knew I should have raised my voice and I did not. But Judaism is not a religion of despair. It's a religion of return. We believe in teshuvah, in returning, in turning again, in becoming more faithful tomorrow than we were yesterday. And so today, I turn. I choose again. I choose. Thank you, God. You want me to use this? Okay, I'll use this. Such a good crescendo. Let me go back a sentence. And so today, I choose again. I choose to turn. I choose to become more faithful to our Jewish messages tomorrow than I was yesterday. There's a teaching in Pirkei Avot that has guided generations of Jews. The day is short, the work is great, the master, God, is impatient. We're also taught in Pirkei Avot, it is not our task to complete the work, but neither are we free to desist from it. These parallel teachings speak to this moment with extraordinary force. None of us can fix what is broken by ourselves. None of us can heal this country alone. None of us can carry every burden, but neither are we permitted to shrug and just walk away, as I did in 1973. Each of us is asked only this: what is ours to do now? Where is our voice needed now? What act of courage, what act of justice, what act of compassion is asked of us now? For some, it may mean speaking. For others, organizing. For others, giving voting, marching, showing up, protecting the vulnerable, refusing lies, or simply having the courage in a room where no one else will say it, this is wrong? That is the question before me and us tonight. At this stage of my life, after decades of trying to serve faithfully, I know that I no longer want fear to have the last word. I do not want caution to write my final chapter. I want to choose the path of greater honesty, greater courage, and greater moral clarity. And therefore, I am hitting the campaign trail to help Adam get elected. Now, I do not claim in any way, shape, or form to be a Heschel. I do not claim to be an Axelrod. I can only be who I am, someone who took a long time, far too long, to learn that speaking up is also a form of service to God. Someone who has come to understand, perhaps later than he should have, that justice is one of the holiest demands of Jewish life. So tonight I say this to you, and I also say it to myself. The time for standing aside has passed in this country. The time for hoping that someone else will do the hard work has passed. The time for moral clarity, for spiritual courage, for raising our voices on behalf of human dignity, that time is now. I will stand up. I will speak up. And I will do it by trying to change Washington to elect someone who can make a difference, who can be a difference. May we be, as a congregation and as a people, one that does justice and one that loves mercy. May we be a congregation and people whose humility does not become passivity. May we be a congregation and a people who pray with our lips and, when the hour demands it, with our voices and our feet. And may the Holy One give us the strength to speak when silence would be easier, to act when fear would hold us back, and help us all to repair this world. Shabbat Shalom.
Oh.